Velkommen alle sammen. What is the number one thing that I hate about the newest Viking season? As a matter of fact, all the old Viking seasons too, and even Last Kingdom and some other great shows. There's one really historically inaccurate thing that I hate all about it. What is it? Is it the clothing and the weapons? No, I really don't care about any of that. How about the inaccurate places and events and what happened? No, not even that. How about the New Age sexually promiscuous female warriors that the men sent to battle for them? No, not even that. Not even what they did to cast our beloved Jarl Haakon. Not even that. What is the number one most inaccurate thing, worse than all those other things that I just mentioned? Treachery and disloyalty to your kin, and this is really what bothers me more than anything. And unfortunately, some form of treachery pops up in almost every single episode of all of these series, and this would have never happened in real life in the Viking Age. The Scandinavians of the time were some of the most loyal and honorable people to ever live, and in this video I'm going to go over some of the stories and sources and hopefully give you guys a whole new opinion on the Norse. So, I know this is just a TV show, and they create these things and this drama to make it exciting, but this is the whole problem and the reason why I'm making this video. It's so important for people to understand that today in our modern age, we have the luxury and also the curse of being able to be disloyal to our closest friends and family. The way society and so-called civilization is set up today, it allows for selfish people to have bad relationships to those close to them and in their community. And today, people even thrive like this with no sense of loyalty or duty to those around them. This is not something that would have ever happened in more primitive cultures in history. Relationships and trust with those around you, loyalty and your reputation was everything, and your honor, it was everything. You would not even be able to survive unless you had a large community around you that liked and trusted you. And if you ask me, this is, above everything else, this is the number one key difference between most ancient cultures and today's modern age. It's the number one toxic behavior that people have developed as modern human beings, and I'm actually ashamed of my home country. I've been to something like 60, 70 countries in the world, and in my opinion, Norway, just in the past 1 or 2 generations, has become one of the worst in the world with this happening. Complete opposite of what a great, strong, loyal, and committed people to each other that the Scandinavia was 1,000 years ago, or shit, even 50 years ago. It's been a big change from what happened. But for now, let's talk about the TV show, and I'll go into my rants at the end of the video. TV show versus the real history. Like I said, the TV show shows like treachery, they portray like a kind of Shakespearean drama, or even like the ancient Greek or Roman tragedy plays. But the real Norse sagas are actually stories of friendship and loyalty above all else. Yeah, of course, the Norse had some fighting, okay, yeah, but always against the enemies. You will almost never hear in any Norse saga or legend or whatever, you will almost never hear friends turning on one another. Now, every saga pretty much has an example of this that you can read for yourself. But my favorites, and the number one, is probably Egil's saga. This is the one that kind of epitomizes the real Viking lifestyle more than anything else. And I talk about this one a lot because it's my favorite, but it's also, it has the most relevant information for what I talk about on this channel. All kinds of different subjects. And it's also the longest one, and that's in Saga of the Icelanders, which I carry on my online shop, if you'd like to read that. So, this story we see basically a family feud, quarreling and loyalty that goes on for 4 generations, probably even longer after the story. It starts with Egil's grandfather, Kvedulf, and he is feuding with Harald Fairhair, that we all know, all the way to the grandsons and great-grandsons feuding with Eric Bloodaxe and his family. even though the later generations of these younger ones in the family had no quarrels with each other, but they were automatically enemies, and they were always giving each other hell back and forth throughout many generations. But it gets a little bit more complicated than that. You see, Egil's older brother, Thorolf, he was great friends with the English king, Athelstan. And he died in a battle, and the English king basically became friends with Egil after that, because he also served in that battle and he saved their asses. So it was a long time loyalty between the English king Athelstan and Egil. And Egil's family had many enemies in Norway, especially King Harald Fairhair and his family, and the king's men basically wanted to kill him on sight. But Egil's family always managed to escape because they had some very good loyal friends in the king's court. Egil's father, Skallagrim, got his ass saved by a good friend in the king Harald Fairhair's court. This guy was one of the top men of the king, and he risked his life by basically allowing Skallagrim to escape, and he chopped off some of the boats so that Harald Fairhair couldn't chase after him, and he got to safety. Fast forward a couple decades in the story, and Egil was once shipwrecked and stuck in England at a time when Eric Bloodaxe, who was Harald Fairhair's son, he was king of Northumbria, and Egil was captured there. Now, Eric Bloodaxe, it was kill on sight if he saw Egil. Egil had been killing his family and causing a ruckus all over, and the families had been fighting for a couple generations now. He even cursed Eric Bloodaxe. No, Eric really needed to kill Egil here in England, because once Egil got out and he made it to the English king, Athelstan, he would have been untouchable. He would have been safe. He wouldn't have been able to get to him. So Egil was captured by Eric and about to be killed, but Eric's longtime loyal friend Arnbjorn basically was a right-hand man and one of the advisors of King Eric, and he put his ass on the line so that Egil could be let free. So we see kind of here loyalty on all sides, and each side kind of understanding the loyalty of others, so they're able to solve the problem peacefully. Arnbjorn loyal to Egil, and Eric loyal to his trusted advisor Arnbjorn, and vouching for Egil like this. And all this loyalty and friendships, by the way, that I mentioned, it was started by one little act of kindness maybe decades ago. It really didn't take much in the Viking Age to gain someone's lifetime friendship and loyalty. It could have been a nice gift that you gave someone, or maybe you fought on someone's side in a battle, or maybe even you composed a poem, like a skaldic poem for the king, and you have their loyalty forever just for this one little act. Another example. Egil goes to King Athelstan again, who loved him once he got free, and with Athelstan's help, Egil was able to return to Norway and get his ancestral lands back granted to him by Haakon the Good, who was Eric Bloodaxe's brother. Haakon didn't particularly want to give Egil his ancestral lands back, but he grew up. He was a foster son of King Athelstan, and he knew how important Egil was to him. So that was the whole quarrel settled right there, just because of loyalty. And in a case like that, when you have kind of loyalty to both sides, you know, the right thing to do would be take the side of the one you had more loyalty towards, while also coming to a solution that did not betray the other side being Haakon's half-brother, Eric in this case. I promise the Vikings were some of the most diplomatic people you will ever know. Kind of like Scandinavians today, they're just very peaceful problem solvers, contrary to popular belief. This much has not changed over 1,000 years. You can also see how important it was if you had support or loyalty from a king, which is why we see so many examples of this. It sounds like kissing the king's ass, basically, in a lot of these sagas and stories, but it's really just giving a gift to a king and offering your friendship, and in return, the king had promised you his loyalty, and that would make life a lot easier for you and your whole family for many generations to come. In fact, we even have quite a few magic spells and runes and staves that were supposed to work to gain favor of the king or powerful men. So this was a very, very important thing. Then I think we should speak about treachery between brothers. Again, something we see all over the place in all the Vikings TV shows, and even in The Last Kingdom too. treachery and jealousy and betrayal between brothers, and it never happened like this. One example, like I just went over, is Erik Bloodaxe. He was banished from Norway, and then his brother Haakon came in to rule in his place. And when you read the kind of general story of those types of things, it sounded like brothers betrayed each other. But when you read the actual details of the story, you can see that that's not quite true. The people of Norway got rid of Erik Bloodaxe just because he was an asshole, and only after that did they accept Haakon the Good, because he was a much more fair and honorable king. The sons of Erik Bloodaxe and Haakon's nephews, they did come back to Norway to try and take back control, but they grew up in England and Denmark, and they really had no loyalty to Haakon. So that's why there was some family quarrel there, but other types of family quarrels like that you almost never see happening in any of the Norse stories. We see a similar example of this story in the latest season of Vikings with the brothers Olav the Saint and Harald Hardrada in the TV show. They betray each other in this TV show, but the reality was they were actually very close and loyal to each other to their last breaths. Harald Hardrada was only a kid when Olav the Saint was killed. He was killed at the Battle of Stiklestad. Harald Hardrada was, I think he was 15, and he was forced to basically exile from Norway, and he grew up actually in the east of Europe most of his childhood. Now, his nephew and Olav the Saint's son, Magnus the Good, took rule over Norway when he was just 11 years old. This is probably going to be shown in the next season of Vikings Valhalla. Little spoiler alert, but it's kind of alluded to that. But as of now, Magnus isn't born yet, but he's about to be. Then quite a bit later on, Harald Hardrada comes back to Norway looking to rule. But there is still loyalty between these two because they are kin. It's uncle and nephew. So Harald Hardrada, they kind of knew that he admitted he had the right to rule Norway. So they basically split the rule of Norway down the middle. Magnus didn't live too long after that, though. He was assassinated in Denmark, but there was at least no family drama or treachery that we know of. And this is just, it simply doesn't happen. Quarrels amongst kin. It didn't happen between kings, and it didn't happen between regular people. And they always found a peaceful solution, even if they were put in a difficult situation like this. I could give you 100 examples of the loyalty between king, but I'll tell you my favorite one here. It's in vatnsdaela saga, I believe, but I forget the guys' names, but I'll put them up here. A man's cousin came into Iceland from Norway, and he had basically become an outlaw in Norway, and he had already pissed off all of Iceland and the village. So the people of the village were hunting him down. The criminal came and hid at his cousin's house, who was a respected man in the village. But the villagers came looking for him, and he said, "Hey, he's your cousin. We know he's here. Come on, give him up." And the guy said, "No, my cousin is not here. I have to be loyal to him. Like, he's not here, but you guys have to go somewhere else." And then the villagers say, okay, we understand he is your cousin, and you have a duty to be loyal to him. That's fine. But he's an outlaw, he's killed many people, and we have to get him, okay? So we'll make you a deal. We know he's in there with you, okay? Just let your cousin out of the house. We won't kill him right away. Instead, we'll give him a day's head start to run away, and then we'll hunt him down. And all sides agree, okay, fair enough. So one side basically didn't have to betray his cousin, even though he was in a very difficult situation, and the other side knew that the loyalty that this guy had to show to his cousin, and they understood, and they figured out a diplomatic way to get it to solve the problem. How beautiful is that? The understanding and diplomatic solutions that the Scandinavians were at the time. How about if you tried that shit today? What if the police came and looked after you today? I wonder what would happen. So you can see there, that's kind of stories of kings and chieftains and regular people, and they almost never showed disloyalty to one another. Pretty much the only ones who showed disloyal, dishonorable behavior are the peasants or slaves, the low-class people of society. One great story, Haakon the Jarl, our favorite guy, goes towards the end of his life, and he was hated by the whole country of Norway eventually, and they were hunting him down. he had his servant with him called Tormod, and Tormod basically kills Haakon. He chops off his head with an axe while he wasn't looking, because he thought he would get a reward. He didn't want to keep hiding Haakon, and he thought he would get a reward by turning him in. But he brings Haakon's head into town, and people were happy that Haakon would died, but they actually killed Tormod too. They beheaded him with an axe because he had betrayed his owner. Like, yeah, we wanted him dead, but what the you're supposed to be loyal to him. He was your lord. We were going to kill you too. So they really did. Everyone, they had a sense of ethics and loyalty, even though they did not agree. And of course, the other side was the enemy, but they understood the loyalty that those enemies would be expected to show to one another, and they didn't come in the way between that. Man, I hope you guys see the parallels to today and why we are in such big trouble as a society. But before I finish the video, I'm gonna get a bit spiritual on you now, speaking about the mythological sources. What is one of the warning signs of Ragnarök, the Armageddon in the Norse beliefs? Brother killing brother. Brothers shall fight and fell each other, and sisters' sons shall kinship stain. So you see, that's just one stanza, one of the prophecies that basically brings about Ragnarök when that happens. When something so unnatural as treachery and quarrels amongst brothers happen, it starts to bring about the end of the world, which is of course symbolic for another disaster in the cycle of world events that we all go through, which in my opinion are about to be happening very soon now. Another, in our mythology, we have a place called Nostrand and Vergelmir, which are the deepest layer of hell where traitors, murderers, and oath breakers go to be tormented in the afterlife. That's not really a place where anyone would want to end up. So in the Norse beliefs, this was for the worst sinners and criminals. These were the traitors. These were the disloyal people. Also, we see this reflected in some of the Germanic tribal laws that we see all around Europe. Basically, the ancestors coming 700 years before the Vikings, they punished traitors and oath breakers with the most harsh punishments. In this source, they were killed and hung from trees, but we have similar laws all over the Germanic areas, basically for the following few hundred years after this. So, as you can see, loyalty and honor is something that the Norse and all Germanic peoples valued above all. Firstly, of course, it's for the relationships that you have. Loyal friends could help you out when you were in a bind. Secondly, it was for the spirituality. It's a part of our religious beliefs to take oaths seriously and be loyal to your kin and those who you had pledged for. And disloyal people are viewed as the biggest, scum that deserve the worst punishments in our beliefs. And finally, like many modern humans don't have the understanding of, loyalty was so important, and it was because of honor and reputation. People talked to each other back then, okay? Reputation was important, and it's not like you could just do something bad and it would be popping up on social media for 3 days after, and then people would forget in a couple weeks. No, back then, your reputation was everything. If you were known as someone who could not be trusted, everybody would know, and none of them would want to associate with you. No one would want to work with you or trade with you, and they wouldn't look after you either. We have, a small handful of people like this in some of these old Norse stories. I'm not saying everyone back then was, loyal and honorable people. There were definitely some bad ones, some disloyal ones. Most of them were outlaws or like witches or wizards or something like that. When they come into a story, they never survive more than a few months. These people are killed off so quickly, as is natural for any tribal or, primitive community in history. So what I spoke about, those were regular people or peasants, but even kings and chieftains didn't act disloyal either. Like in the TV show, the kings are the traitors and do some of the worst things, and all their warriors and their closest men support it and blindly follow them, carrying out these treacherous acts. The reality is, even the king's closest, most trusted warriors or servants back then, it would have been very difficult to get them to blindly follow the king. It would have been very difficult to get those men to just blindly to agree to help the king with this treacherous or evil act. Most soldiers would have stood up and said, hey, wait a second, this is not right, we can't do this, okay? We need to look for a better way. As there are countless examples of this happening in Norse sources, so just do some reading, and it makes sense, right? If a king betrayed their brother or something to get to rule into power, or killed their son or their uncle or whatever, nobody would want to follow that king. Like, oh, this fucker can't even get along with his own brother, with his own family. How are we supposed to trust him to lead over us? You see, this is what happens when you get free men and a free society. Leaders have to prove themselves and to be trusted. When you have a society full of slavery, on the other hand, a leader can be a horrible, disloyal coward, and others will still follow them because they are slaves and that's their master, they have to. But in a free society, people are free to follow any leader they choose, and they are naturally going to go to the bravest and most honorable, most loyal. I wonder which type of society we are living in today. I really have to admit, different countries today are definitely on different levels of this, different peoples, different communities even in the same city. Some peoples are right on par with how it was in the Viking Age. You know, the more loyal a people are on the smaller scale and communities and family and all that, the more free and happy and prosperous they are, and how the more connected they are as a society. But when a country decides to not be loyal to each other and rely on the masters more than each other, whether it be the state or the employers or the welfare or institutions, schools, whatever, you can see what that does to a people, a once great nation of tribes, strong and independent, able to survive the harshest struggles because they look out for each other. That eventually turns, well, not that, pretty much. It ends up being sad, lonely people, disconnected from the ones that they should love and should get along with, so that the people, you know, they just end up so weak and offended and saddened by the realities that they don't want to accept it, and they just take some pills and therapy to make themselves cope, instead of having a strong community that could help you out when you're in need, like ancient humans did. And this is what has happened to our home, unfortunately. Not all of us. Trust me, there are still some great, strong, loyal people in Norway and Scandinavia. But, you know, those people are the ones that understand what I'm saying. They're the ones that agree with me and don't like to see what the country has turned into the past 20, 30, 40 years. The ones that are offended and pissed off at the things I say, guess what? That's probably the ones I'm talking about. You just proved me right. But, you know, there's a lot of countries that have gone down this really destructive path and disconnection from each other, especially in the West, unfortunately. And I would really just like to see people being good to each other and looking out for their loved ones and forming these loyal relationships that last a lifetime with their friends, with their community, with their neighbors. That is the true Norse way. And when you see these TV shows, that's more of like a Shakespearean tragedy than the actual reality of how humans should be. I know the show does this for entertainment, but you know, of course, there's a reason Shakespeare is more famous and popular than the Norse sagas. It's because there's more drama and there's more people who want to get into it and get into that story, but it's just not the reality of how we humans are meant to function. That's why I make these videos, is so you guys can see the difference, and you don't have to take my word for it. Don't trust me. Just do some reading and you'll see yourself very quickly that this is really the main thing, the main difference between our modern day and what is portrayed in the Vikings TV shows and what was the reality in history. So that's all. Hope that inspired you a little bit at least to look into it some more, but that's all I have to say for today. Vi ses nästa gång.